Right, so is Donald Trump threatening Hamas, or is he negotiating directly with them? The two claims don't make sense, but then we are talking about Donald Trump here, aren't we? So can both cases be true? It seems so. And is Israel panicking like mad about this? You bet they are. From threatening Hamas if they don't release all the hostages they hold, to apparently negotiating with them in regards to those hostages behind the scenes and behind Israel's back, it makes you wonder which of Trump's many faces Hamas know they are talking to right now, but there we go. But perhaps it all stems from the US not trusting Israel any more than the rest of us do in being honest brokers. Where most people want hostages on both sides returned home, Israel had turned the current ceasefire into another battleground, blocking aid, stoking a humanitarian crisis, and even rearresting hostages they have already released. Israel are not honest brokers, but can the US under Trump be considered any better? Right, so the ongoing Gaza ceasefire stalemate between Israel and Hamas has taken yet another unpredictable turn, with reports that the Trump administration has been holding secret talks with Hamas. This has sent shockwaves through the Israeli government. They don't like this one iota, where officials are panicking over the potential implications of what may be being said there. But this also highlights how Trump's involvement in this situation with regard to Gaza is fraught with contradictions. On one hand, he has issued aggressive threats against Hamas, demanding the release of all hostages and warning the group of dire consequences. And on the other hand, his administration are holding back-channel communications with Hamas, adding more chaos to an already chaotic approach to the crisis. Donald Trump's recent threats against Hamas have been what the media might call characteristically blunt and incendiary, but which translates in my view to simply shouting short words very loudly. In a statement reported by the mainstream media, it has been this warning to Hamas, with Trump apparently yelling, "You are dead," in a demand that the groups release all hostages they are holding immediately. Trump diplomacy, knuckles dragging all the way. However, in direct contrast to that, it's been reported that Trump officials have been engaging in secret talks with Hamas, a claim having been made by the Cradle, citing US news outlet Axios, which has claimed that a report by Axios claims the Trump administration has been holding direct talks with Hamas in Doha to negotiate the release of US captives in Gaza, marking the first time Washington has engaged directly with Hamas, despite its official designation as a terrorist group. These unprecedented talks, led by US hostage envoy Adam Boehler, have also touched on a broader deal for a long-term ceasefire, though no agreement has been reached. While Israel was consulted, it reportedly learned about parts of the discussions through other channels rather than direct US coordination. Meanwhile, Trump's Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff cancelled a planned trip to Qatar, citing Hamas's lack of progress in the negotiations. So does one part of the Trump administration know what the other is doing, or are they now just trying to work around Trumpian idiocy? It does make you wonder, doesn't it? Now, as far as Trump's threats are concerned, Hamas have responded to them by accusing him of aiding Benjamin Netanyahu in backing out of ceasefire negotiations. According to Hamas, Trump's rhetoric is designed to provide political cover for Netanyahu to abandon the ceasefire agreement entirely, something we know Netanyahu is very desperate to do. Netanyahu has a track record of using external pressure to justify hardline policies, and breaking ceasefires goes hand in hand with that. So is this something he and Trump have cooked up between themselves? Or is this just Trump being his usual unstable self? Well, if you're into guessing games, knock yourself out with that one. If true, though, Trump's actions are aimed at further destabilisation of the Gaza ceasefire agreement, further undermining efforts to achieve a permanent ceasefire and a lasting peace, as unlikely as that is with Netanyahu still in charge in and of itself anyway. But while Trump's involvement just adds further complication to the ceasefire negotiation, Israel's actions remain a central factor in the ongoing crisis, and they are the biggest complication of them all. Despite the ceasefire agreement still on paper holding, in practice it isn't. Israel have been blocking aid for 5 days now from entering Gaza, effectively returning to using starvation as a weapon of war on top of the airstrikes and other attacks they have been carrying out in Gaza, as their demands for a ceasefire extension of phase 1 of that agreement, rather than moving to phase 2, goes ignored by Hamas, who demand Israel stick with the agreed original plan and move to phase 2 now, as they should be, something that will never happen because it would see Netanyahu ousted from power. Israel's approach to the ceasefire right now, therefore, can be seen in practice as a continuation of war by other means. By restricting the flow of food, medicine, and other essential supplies, Israel is weaponizing the humanitarian crisis in Gaza once again. The blockade has had particularly devastating effects on vulnerable populations, including children and the elderly. The Quds news network reports that nearly 500,000 children and elderly people are at risk of starvation and freezing due to Israel's aid blockade. And with only around 2 weeks' worth of food left in Gaza, the situation is dire and demands immediate international attention and intervention. The blockade not only violates international law, it's also a complete moral failure on the part of the Israeli government, not that morality has ever been a very big thing for them. Salama Marouf, the head of Gaza's government media office, has issued a statement on this matter, drawing particular attention to fuel shortages and the consequences of them, saying, "For the 5th consecutive day, the occupation continues its crime of besieging Gaza and preventing the entry of all forms of aid, including fuel." So what does the lack of fuel mean? Complete shutdown of hospitals and health centres, endangering the lives of thousands of patients and wounded individuals. Oxygen stations in hospitals ceasing operation, affecting thousands of patients. Kidney dialysis services coming to a halt, leaving hundreds of patients without treatment. Operating rooms and intensive care units shutting down, leading to the deaths of hundreds of patients relying on them. Desalination plants stopping, leaving no access to clean drinking water. Water wells ceasing to function, meaning no water for household use. Municipal services halting, preventing waste collection and debris removal from streets. Complete shutdown of transport for all relief sectors. Ambulances, civil defence vehicles and other essential services providers unable to operate. Wastewater treatment plants shutting down, risking sewage overflows and flooding in residential areas. And in a further show of disdain for the terms of the ceasefire agreement has come the story of Isra Ganimat, a Palestinian who had been released as part of the agreement, who has already now been rearrested by Israel without any reason for it having been given. It's yet another sickening violation of the ceasefire terms, and is yet one more in the growing list of Israeli actions that make it clear that Israel is not committed to a genuine resolution of the conflict or for peaceful resolution, but is instead using the ceasefire as a tactical pause to just reassert control. The rearrest of Ganimat also highlights the broader issue of Israel's treatment of Palestinian detainees. Thousands of Palestinians remain in Israeli prisons, many without charge or trial, as the mainstream media fixates on the handful that Hamas still hold on to in Gaza. And their release is a key demand of Hamas in any ceasefire agreement. By reneging on its commitments, Israel is jeopardising the prospects for a lasting peace, jeopardising the return of those hostages Hamas are still holding, and further alienating the Palestinian population still living under their occupation. Israel has got to be held accountable for its actions. I say it again and again and again. And its blockade needs busting. And I, for one, am sick and tired of repeating myself on that vein, but there never being seemingly any willingness to hold Israel to account for their actions either. Humanitarian organisations should be granted unrestricted access to Gaza to provide the essential aid and support to those in need, and engagement with Egypt's plans to rebuild Gaza as the only sensible option on the table right now to do that, moving forwards, should be getting much more widely reported and supported. Trump's approach has seemingly prioritised brute force over diplomacy, bullying and thuggery over cooperation, and whilst others in his administration appear to be attempting the opposite, his word at the end of the day is what ends up going. By aligning himself with Netanyahu's hardline policies, Trump's not part of any viable solution. He's simply helping to perpetuate the cycle of violence and aggression and oppression. Speaking of that Egyptian plan for Gaza, though, if you've not yet heard the details of that, running completely counter to Trump's ethnic cleansing and hotels and casinos vision, then check out this video which contains all the details of what could be a very exciting prospect for Gaza's future. Trump hates it, so it must be good. In this video recommendation here is your suggested next watch. Please do also hit like, share and subscribe to the channel as well if you haven't done so already, so as to ensure you don't miss out on all new content published daily, as well as supporting the channel at the same time, which is very much appreciated, holding power to account for ordinary working class people as I do here, and I will hopefully catch you on the next vid. Cheers folks.